Hello, welcome. We're glad you're with us today. This is our Research Leaders Forum. We're just going to get rolling as other people join and go through a few quick announcements for the Guild. This is Executive Alignment, and we're thrilled to have our special guest, Tamara Adlin, with us today. We record these sessions and reserve the right to use them for marketing and educational purposes. One of the things we do at the Guild is facilitate networking among the people who come. To do that today, we have a networking spreadsheet. If you want, you can share your details, LinkedIn details, to connect with others who are on this, who've come to this session. Ellen will place that link now. We'll also have breakout room networking at the end, so feel free to stay for that at the end of the session if you're interested. Our next event is on Research Sprints. It's on August 27th. It features Leanne Waldall. We hope you'll join us. You can find that on our Luma calendar, and Ellen will paste that link. We have a giveaway at the end of this session. It's a copy of the book, Invisible Women, Data Bias in a World Designed for Men. We're giving away that book because our September book group is going to discuss the book. So if you're interested, feel free to join us. Ellen will paste a link to purchase it if you want. And of course, one lucky winner today will get the book for free. We choose the winner based on someone who we think has added to the conversation with an insightful question or observation. So let's see if you have one of those during our session. We welcome any to get in. If this is your first event, to get involved with the Guild. We just have a lot of great things going on. Volunteer research for pro bono research for nonprofit organizations, job search councils for those who are looking for work. We also can use volunteers to help us spread the word on social media, ambassadors to help us find hiring managers to hire Guild researchers. And of course, you can apply to work on our team. We have a position open and we'll post a link for that. If we have hiring managers here, maybe we do, please consider hiring from the Guild. Here's how we compare ourselves to other resources. We try to be very high quality because we specialize in researchers. We have this huge community across the US to draw from. So we try to be as high quality as any other agencies, digital agencies, research agencies, but very inexpensive, like the freelancer platforms. So high quality, low cost is our aim. Finally, it is my pleasure to introduce our special guest, Tamara Adlin. She is based in Seattle, has many years of experience in UX, design, research, consulting. She's worked with many startups, helping them do this difficult job of creating products people love to use. She's the co-author of the Persona series of books, Persona Lifestyle books, and she has done this excellent work on executive alignment. So we're thrilled that she's agreed to present to the Guild today, and I welcome Tamara Adlin.
Thank you. I'm super excited to be here, and I'm seeing some friends in the attendees, which is super fun. Oh, Mark's here. La la la. Andy, and some folks from WCQ. I see you. All right. So let me get started here. Thank you for that great introduction. Thanks to everybody for inviting me. And I'm going to talk to you about some stuff that's going to be slightly nauseating, but also kind of true. And so I'm excited to do that. This is Executive Alignment for UX and Product Leaders. I know that a lot of you in this group already have some experience under your belt, and so it's going to make it easier for me to take you on this walk that I'm going to take you through. So this is who I am. I've done lots of startups. I'm working on more content since these books that have now aged quite a bit. The Persona Lifecycle came out in 2005, and the Essential Persona Lifecycle came out in 2010, and I co-authored those with John Pruitt. And I'm also heavily involved in helping people who are looking for work through Never Search Alone. All right. Here's my big point. This is the last slide brought up to the first slide. My point is that seniority in UX, UXR, and product requires realizing that staying out of politics is not an option. This is a big lesson that we have to learn, and it's a big sort of moment in our careers when we realize we can't stay out of politics. It's not an option. We have to understand that alignment is more valuable than data, and I'll tell you why. We have to accept that aligning stakeholders is actually your actual job. It may be the biggest part of your job. It doesn't matter what your job title is. As you get more senior, this is the most important part of your job. And also knowing that you are uniquely suited to do this job that is hard, and I'm going to tell you how to do it. And that you are aligning on the stuff on the left, which is what are we building, which users are the most important to the business, and then, of course, stuff familiar to us. Who are they? What motivates them? What problems do they have in their own words? How can we delight them? We have to know how the thing we're building is different and better than our competition. Why should users care? And how will we know we nailed it? These are all the things that we need to know. And above, you'll see these nicely aligned Greek god executives who are all thinking about the same person who you'll meet in a second. So now that I showed you the last slide, let me show you the first slide. Why is it so hard to design and launch products people love? This is the question that has been nagging me for 25 years. Personas was supposed to solve it because it was supposed to bring data into the design and development process. Personas so often didn't work, even though they're such a great idea, that I couldn't stop with just researching personas and doing data-driven persona instructions. So we know how to answer these big questions, right? These are the big questions that lead to good products. What we're building, who we're building it for, what those people will want, what process we'll use to build that thing, and how we'll deal with changes while we build that thing. And a lot of us approach a lot of these questions by attacking it by doing research or data, especially in this crowd. So we know how to develop good products. We know how to design them. We have hundreds of books on this. We have examples of great products. We know how to do this. It's not the problem that we don't know how to do it, but we usually launch this. Why, if we know how to do the thing on the left, do we usually launch the thing on the right? Here's my cute slide. Why? Because of tornadoes. Okay, you may know how to build a house, but if a tornado comes through the building site, there's no way you're going to develop the house that you originally had planned to develop. So let's talk about tornadoes. Misaligned executives cause tornadoes that rip through our projects like actual tornadoes through building sites. And here is how I break down that problem. We, in our roles, don't understand what life is really like for decision makers, even though they are decision makers, even though they are so powerful in our lives. Second problem is we don't fully understand and realize the catastrophic impact of stakeholder misalignment, which is inevitable once you understand what their life is really like. The next problem is we haven't been really clear on what we need from execs, partially because we've been such snobs about data, which I'll talk about more in a second. And I have to move my little window here so that, computers are hard. See, I can't even move this. Okay, we think we can't control the weather. I can't even control the panel on the right of my screen. So of course we can't control the weather. So here's problem one. We don't understand what life is really like for decision makers. We think it kind of looks like this picture. This is what it actually looks like. It actually looks like a war of the gods. Once you get up into C-level, or even, I say executives, it can just be senior stakeholders. It's crazy up there. And I know this because I've been consulting for different companies, either startups or really big companies, for 20 years. And so I've seen dozens and dozens of leadership teams, and they are not nearly as shiny and organized as we'd like them to be. They don't have it all together by a long shot. And they're so focused on fighting with each other that it's hard for them to understand and give us what we really need to do our jobs. So is it really, there, look, now there's some data, right? There's some data thrown in the middle of that. Is it really surprising that data really works? The data just thrown over the wall, even though we think it's so powerful, it doesn't work. And when I put together a picture like this, it makes sense to me. If it doesn't make sense to you yet, how about now? Data doesn't always work. If data always worked, no one would get married anymore. Why doesn't data work? Because everyone thinks they're a special case. Everyone has their own situation, especially like when they get married, where they don't think data is going to apply to them. Senior stakeholders in businesses are no different. There may be data, but it's so easy to slip and slide around that data. Say it wasn't collected in the right way, it wasn't answering the right question, or it doesn't take into account all the great ideas that we have in our business. It's super easy to do that. So data by itself just doesn't work. what we have to understand is that being executive doesn't make you smarter, but it also doesn't necessarily make you dumber, even though there is often vast evidence to the contrary of that. But it always, always sucks. It's always risky to communicate. I mean, imagine trying to make a point during this battle. There's always convoluted language that nobody thinks is convoluted. People are talking past each other, defining words in different ways. For example, the word user. There are rampant assumptions, some of which are valuable and useful. Not all assumptions are bad. We poo-poo assumptions, but assumptions are also often embedded knowledge about what the business is trying to do and who they're trying to do it for. There's unclear goals always, which we'll talk about in a minute. These teams are always overreactive. They're always data intolerant, and there's always politics and power struggles. And they're data intolerant for the same reason in the slide I showed you before. If you think you're a special case, data doesn't matter. Okay, so here's problem number 2. Now that we understand what their lives are like, it makes sense that they're kind of chaotic and misaligned, right? Because how could they be aligned when they're so busy fighting? Now we need to realize the catastrophic impact of stakeholder misalignment. Misalignment is so devastating that it's worse than not having data, right? Okay, so let's just break this down. We're back to the house analogy because we're all comfortable there. We focus on optimizing our processes within our domains. It's as if we were building a house. And by the way, a lot of these images were generated with AI a couple months ago, and they were so mangled that I had to keep them in here because the hands are bananas and the faces are horrible, and it cracks me up. Job security for us when AI looks like this. When we're building a house, we focus on optimizing our own processes within our own domain. We tweak and massage the double diamond model or whatever it is we're using, and we make it better and better and better. We're focused on the team that is inside the house, building the house, getting the contractors there at the right time, waiting for the decorators until the walls are up. But then things change around us. Right? We're so focused on getting the frame of the house built. Well, wait a second. What if it starts to rain? We put up tarps. We're pretty resilient, actually, right? We'll keep working. We'll keep trying to make the house just like it was supposed to be until things get absolutely ridiculous. And almost always they get absolutely ridiculous because minds changed around us. Execs come through and swoop and poop. All the goals seem to change. Someone comes in and says, that's not what we wanted you to build, even though it's exactly what they said they wanted you to build. So tornadoes come through and throw our processes into chaos. It doesn't matter how good we are at what we do if a tornado can rip through anything that we're doing, because a tornado is on a different level. And then we launch. So it's kind of no wonder that products out there aren't as good as they were supposed to be. The next problem is that we haven't been clear on what we need from executives. We need clarity from executives, and we need to know what their assumptions are. We don't need to battle their assumptions as much as we need to know what they are. And by the way, the only way to change an assumption is to know exactly what it is before you start to try to change it. We need to know from their point of view, from the executives or stakeholders' point of view, what do you want us to build? Which users are most important to the business? How is our thing different and better? Why should users care? And how will we know we nailed it? Just asking them these questions does not work because their communication is chaotic. The words are all defined differently. There's battles going on, but this is actually what we need. And we need these answers to stick for long enough for us to build something that we can launch. And then our stuff fits in, nudged and nestled, at least right in here and often in more places, under which users are most important to the business. Who are they exactly? What motivates them? What problems do they have in their own words? And how can we delight them? Right? This is a picture of clarity that we need. And if we have this as user experience and product people, we can design and build almost anything, and we can do it really well. And researchers can research and add color to and knock down assumptions in any of these places. But my argument is the only way to do that is to know what the assumptions are in the first place. The next thing is we think we can't control the weather. Well, it's executives. What are you going to say, right? They're always going to swoop and poop. We have all these cute little phrases about them. We complain about it all the time. But I think there's an embedded sort of feeling in here that we can't control this. Well, we can, right? And there's going to be a surge in our field of discussions about alignment. This book just came out, which I'm super excited about. It's called Aligned by Bruce McCarthy and Melissa Apple. And you should definitely get this. This word is going to become part of our vocabulary in our domains. I call it controlling the weather, aligning the executives and controlling the weather. Weather comes from above. Tornadoes come from above, and they come from all of these problems that are going on the battlefield, right? Overreactivity, unclear goals, all of those things. This is what our battle of the giants, of the titans look like, and they're suffering from all those things. We can't just say you guys have problems with these. We have to help them solve that. If we turn this problem around and say, if there's a group of users or customers in our case, right? They are customers of our work that are confused, not sure how they actually get work done. Their processes could be vastly improved. Isn't that exactly what we were trained to do? I would argue it is. So we're turning all of our brilliance in terms of user research, user knowledge, product knowledge around and saying, what if our users and our customers and the processes we're trying to solve are coming from inside the house? They're coming from above. Aligned executives, ones who aren't fighting anymore, who have measurable goals, depoliticized communication, a new vocabulary around users, a refreshed user-focused, and lasting priorities. If we can achieve this, doesn't matter if it's built on what we'd like to call assumptions, because having this is so powerful that it makes us more likely to build and launch a great product, even if we're doing it for slightly the wrong users. I'm going to just say that. So executive alignment is the what we're after, right? Aligning up. And an alignment workshop is the how. An alignment persona workshop is the how we're going to do that. Okay, so first let me distinguish between data-driven personas, which I know way too much about, and alignment personas, which is my own word for this workshop that we're doing now. And it's not just personas, but you'll see. Data-driven personas were intended to shove data into the design and development process. Very smart, and to do it by personifying this data. The problem is that doesn't always work, and my conclusion is that that's because of tornadoes. Alignment personas instead express executive or stakeholder level clarity in fake people with product-related wants and needs who live everywhere, not just in the double diamond. They live all throughout the organization in every level of communication. And there's folks here from products that I did, giant persona alignment persona projects where the personas are still alive and well and kicking, even though data wasn't applied until later. Here's how you do executive alignment in 5 conversations. This is a workshop. Any of us can do this. I would always start small, and I want to give this process away so that we all get better and better at it. And this sort of fits as a method to get the alignment that's being talked about in Bruce and Melissa's exciting new book. This is the alignment persona. This is the 5 conversations. Measurable project level business goals, how we talk about users today, refocusing on wants and needs, drafting motivation-based personas, and the magical sentence. Okay, this is a workshop that you do with your boss, your grand boss, your great grand boss. This is a workshop you try first on a small level with your own team with friendly faces. You can do this quick. It can just take a matter of a few sessions over a couple of weeks. It's not super expensive, and it has magical results. So I want you all to try it. Conversation 1 is measurable business goals. Business goals are magical. They're never inappropriate to ask for, and they almost never exist. They're magical, right? So whenever I ask for clarity on business goals, when I go into a project or write a contract, I'm always told we already have those nailed down. And I said, okay, send them to me. And I never get any of them because the business goals I'm after are measurable, usually usage-based goals around the project we're working on right now. And so the way that I work on that is, and there are tons of people who have wonderful information, like on doing deep dives into OKRs and all of those things. I have a very simple format that I use, and it's simple on purpose. I use Mad Libs. I think these are still around. They were big when I was a kid. And the Mad Lib says that I want business goals in this format. I want to know the word, I want to start with the word increase or decrease, some important metric by some actual number within some time period. And I want them in this format, and forcing this format and saying, oh, poor me, this is the only way I can understand goals, forces everybody to say, okay, this is simple, but it's also tricky, and we can do this. So here's this example that I'm going to use. This is Ad Age magazine at the bottom. Let's imagine that we were working with the stakeholders for Ad Age online magazine. Their business goals, Mad Libs, for a redesign of this site might be something like increase, the important metric is visitors who subscribe, by 20% within the first 5 visits. Increase time on site by 50% within 6 months of redesign. Decrease subscription cancellations by 80% within 6 months of redesign. Now, let me talk to you about these. We can find lists of important metrics all over the place, right? But you have to help the people who are helping you create the alignment personas choose the metrics that are most important to them. The amount has to be a number. Why? Because you need agreement, alignment from everybody in the workshop that is this number around 20% or is it around 275%? I guarantee you one important person will say one thing, another important person will say another. You have to get to agreement that it's around 20%. And this is where a lot of these things fall apart. This is where unclear communication is. Even if stakeholders agree that visitors who subscribe is an important metric, there may be radical different notions about what means success for this particular project you're on. And then within the first 5 visits or 6 months of redesign, it's very important to remind stakeholders that numbers will not change the second you relaunch a product. So that's there to protect you. It's also to narrow in and to force clarity on these metrics and these numbers, because you're saying, okay, well, this is in 3 months. I mean, we're doing this right now. We're doing it fast. We can do this exercise again for the time period after this. And then you need a priority, 1, 2, or 3. So in this case, for our little example, the most important goal is to decrease subscription cancellations by 80% within 6 months of redesign. I have no professional relationship with Ad Age magazine. This is just an example I chose years ago. But you can pretty much guarantee that they're having a problem with subscription cancellations. And you can pretty much imagine that an executive team might say, if we don't stop the bleed, we're in serious trouble and nothing else matters. So this comes from a business perspective, but it's tied to usage metrics. Next step, with all these people in the room together, and this is in a room or on a Zoom or something like that, these are stakeholders that are together with you moderating these conversations. This is, and by the way, these goals, you can usually start this conversation in the beginning of a workshop. It usually takes finishing these offline, because these are actually DNA level questions you're asking these business people. They don't have the answers right away. They don't have them. It's amazing. You would think they'd be able to spit them out, but they can't, because anytime 2 or more stakeholders are in a room together, something changes. No one writes it down. And it is career suicide to say, I don't remember our business goals in a meeting. That's why you come in and say, help me, create just an expression of business goals that looks like this. I'm not trying to tread on you, very important person. I'm trying to get clarity for myself. So then the next step is, how do we talk about users today? You start with a very quick exercise where you just get people to blurt out all the words for users that are rampant in your organization today. Users, customers, executives, my mom, students, content pros, strategists. This takes about 5 minutes. You're blurting out all of the language that's currently alive in your organization. Then you do something called a yellow sticky exercise, which is where you actually go one step deeper. And you ask folks, you give them 20 minutes, you give them a pack of yellow sticky notes. You ask them to create as many yellow sticky notes as they can, describing the people showing up at the door. I don't care if it's front door. I don't care if it's side door. I don't care that the landing page is no longer the landing page. I want to know, if your product was a building, who's showing up and why are they there? Okay. So for example, an agency executive who wants a 5-minute overview of everything, a brand rep trying to decide if it's worth buying ads with us in Adweek magazine, a marketer looking for a new job, a subscriber who reads our news section every day, a mid-level person looking for career resources or training. This is not rocket surgery. This is asking them to take all of this herd of users and customers that's in their head, their assumptions about who's coming to Adweek online, and writing it down. Everyone always thinks this is going to take forever. It inevitably takes 20 minutes. This is you getting assumptions about users out on paper. And by the way, these assumptions aren't all bad. Okay? You get them all out where you can see them. And I used to do these actually on tables with sticky notes, and now it's often in Mural or a Miro board or something like that. The third conversation is refocusing on wants and needs. Again, this is a collaborative conversation. You've got all those yellow stickies out there, and now what you do is you tell all of those lovely people to work together to create pink sticky notes that they gather the yellow sticky notes under. And every pink sticky notes has to start with the word I want or I need. And the reason for that is that well, I'll show you on the next slide. But here, for example, you might have several that are under I want to build my career, right? There's people who want to stay up to date on everything related to X. Because you have so many yellow sticky notes, this is going to take a while, and there's going to be many more categories and pink sticky notes up here, and that's okay. And it's a really good exercise, and it requires a lot of conversation and collaboration. And you've put up these guardrails that this is what the pink sticky notes have to say on them. And so it's a nice, solid assignment telling them what to do. And this transitions everybody in the room from thinking about users, which is the yellow sticky notes, to thinking like users, which is the pink sticky notes, because the words I want and I need come out of the mouths of users. Whereas describing somebody as needing career help is the way we usually think about people from afar. The next step is create, and I'm flying through this stuff, you guys, and there's going to be more information about this available, and I want to leave time for questions, which is why I'm flying through this so fast. Candidate personas is the next thing you do. Now you think to yourself, remember that building that we had where everybody was showing up at the front door? Well, now imagine that there's a concierge inside and an information desk, let's say. And imagine all of those people were walking into the door, and after a full day or a week of encountering wants and needs, what are the differences that make a difference? So what would this concierge say? Probably a concierge would say something like, oh, throughout the day, there were a bunch of people who were brand new to the advertising world who just need to know where we fit in the big picture and who we're for. There are people who've been subscribers forever who are having problems with their subscription account. There are people who are doing, a bunch of like sort of research projects, and they needed to find specific information. There's people who are just looking to be entertained. So that's how I imagine like talking to an information desk at a skyscraper. They'd say like, oh, a bunch of those came in, we sent them to the 5th floor. A bunch of those came in, we sent them to the 10th floor. And what we do there to create those candidate personas is look for big motivations. People who are looking for trend information, people who are looking for career information, for inspiration, right? And again, this is certainly more art than science, but here what you're doing is you're forcing executives to rethink the way that they think about users, and to remember that interactions with products usually start with a motivation and continue through with a specific want or a need. And those wants and needs change over time and over your own life cycle with a product. Stakeholders and executives are not used to thinking this way. So it's much less about huge data changes than it is about a subtle shift in reminding them to think about people as individuals who come with a want and a need to be able to get through layers and layers of information or clicks or whatever to get to satisfaction for what they actually want to do. And then you add names and faces. And I know I'm summarizing this very quickly, but it is basically the idea that you would take an inspiration seeker and make Ian inspo seeker, Carly career, Dana deep dive, Trey trend hunter, Quinn quick hit, who just wants a quick overview of the news in Ad Age magazine. Now, again, these are not data-driven, but they're also probably not very wrong. Okay, so if Ad Age magazine is as much of a chaotic mess as it appears to be right now, it's easy to see that even these people with I would argue that you'd have a hard time arguing that these are relevant people, right? And that they exist for Ad Age magazine. And if we take a look at Ad Age magazine, which again, I have no relationship with, you'll see that it's not super easy for any of them to do anything on it. It's such a mess. And the design is so far away from the basic wants and needs of humans and so politicized that even just doing this is a massive upgrade to the customer and user centrism of your executive team. This is how I write these personas. It's just the name, the motivation, And then the wants and needs, which you already did. The pink stickies now go here in this description of the persona. It's not a big giant thing. It's maybe a category, a name, a face, wants and needs mostly. And then you can add other things if you want to, like how you can delight them. All right, data people. Now is when data can come into play. You can't throw data in on a horseback into a raging set of arguing gods and stakeholders. Once you know what they're thinking, once you have their hypothesis about who the important customers and users are, now your data has a place to land. We're always told not to collect data without hypotheses anyway. At least I was in 7th grade. Now you have the hypotheses. If you try to insert data before this moment, and you don't know what their assumptions are, and they don't know that their assumptions don't match, remember, they've created these people collaboratively. They created Quinn. They created Ian together. Now you can go in and say, guess what? Carly, career, the young woman who just graduated, she is never, ever, ever coming to Adweek magazine online. You can go out and get that data. They may think that she's the greatest target ever, but there's no way they're going to get her. You guys are the ones who can go out there and do that, right? And now you can tell them and they can have a discussion about that. All right. Then what you're really trying to do through all of this is get to what I call the magical sentence. The magical sentence of alignment. If we don't make persona name ridiculously happy, we won't hit our highest priority goals. This magical sentence, you want it to come out of this workshop with key stakeholders because it is likely to stick. And let me tell you how you get there. Remember, you know the goals. And you know that the #1 goal is to decrease subscription cancellations by 80% within 6 months of redesign. You know that. They did that. You didn't do that. They did that. And then you know these personas, these alignment personas that they created together. All of them, all the stakeholders know who Quinn is, Ian is, Carly is, Trey is, and Dana is. When they come in next week and say, well, what about the person who is changing careers? They're not just out of college, but they're coming from UX to marketing. You say, well, that's really fits under Carly. And they say yes, because that's what ends up happening. So now the question is, if you need to decrease subscription cancellations by 80% within 6 months, who do you have to make ridiculously happy? And this is the way that exercise can look. You can give out 100 points. They can assign those 100 points based on that question. And what ends up happening is that different executives have different scores that don't match. And again, this is massive misalignment. Sometimes, like look at exec 3, and that might be the marketing person who thinks that Quinn Quick Hit is the most important to satisfy and thinks that Trend Hunter is not that important and Dana is somewhere in the middle. Well, maybe the CEO, who's exec number 4, let's say, is completely the opposite. You found this out within a couple of weeks. Not with a huge data collection effort that's expensive, not with months and months of work, but very quickly through a series of 5 conversations. If you can see it, you can fix it. You can average it out, whatever, you can have a conversation about it. And if you have the Titans have conversations about Quinn and Dana and the business goal, they're much less likely to slaughter each other because suddenly it's not about who's smarter. It's more about, wait a minute, Dana and Quinn, who we created together and we all understand. And this goal that all of us agreed on, which is, dude, if we don't stop hemorrhaging subscriptions, none of this other stuff even matters, right? And where they would get to, I think, is that Dana deep dive, somebody doing a deep research on trends in advertising, and Trey is looking for trends. Why? They probably already have subscriptions. Carly Career can't afford a subscription, right? And they're likely to use Ad Age magazine for what it really is, which is this super huge data source and publication on trends in advertising that goes back years and years and years and desperately needs Andy Fitzgerald to figure out their cluster of an information architecture and content design. And I say that because he's on the line. All right. So now it's hard to get here. The 5 conversations get you to this magical sentence. And this is your executives or your stakeholders saying this. If we don't make Dana and Trey ridiculously happy, we will not decrease subscription cancellations. Why is this magical? Because again, in 3 weeks, when somebody comes in and said, oh, my nephew was playing Fortnite the other day, and I think we should make subscriptions more like choosing a character skin or whatever the hell, right? That shows how uncool I am. You can say, oh, that's great. Super smart, super important executive. But can you tell me how that would help us keep Dana and Trey from abandoning their subscriptions? And they'll say, oh, good point. Actually, we should hold off on that. Or they'll say we have to do it anyway, and then at least you'll know. Right? Okay, so look what you've done. In getting to this, if we don't make Dana ridiculously and Trey ridiculously happy, we won't decrease subscription cancellations. We have answers to all of these questions that are so critical for launching. And not only do we have answers to them, perhaps more importantly, that alignment, that shared answer to each one of these important questions is going to stick so that tornadoes are much less likely. You have dealt with all the battling well before you even started building the house. And this kind of magical sentence lasts and it cuts tornadoes out of the picture. Again, because it depoliticizes. Again, because all the words are defined collaboratively by the people in the room, because it is user-focused, because it is business-driven. And as a researcher, if you have come across data that is critically important to this business decision, you actually have a chance of having it heard and having it stick and having it change the priorities or whatever. Okay, so making it all practical, then you get to a point when you have aligned these executives to say, we need to decrease subscription cancellations by 80%. Dana and Trey are subscribers. Why are they leaving? Well, product people were really good at fixing stuff like this. Put yourself in Dana's shoes and absorb her wants and needs. Now try using our product. What's it like? Well, by the way, if you're in Dana's shoes and you go to adage.com, which any of you can do, I wouldn't know what to do if I had a research project that I was doing, but I would think that I should be able to get information there. How can we make Dana's experience better and easier? What about Trey's? And then this last bullet with which the new swoop and poop ideas come in. That's a great idea. Oh, head honcho of all head honchos. Oh, great God, Zeus. But that's really for Ian Inspo Seeker, isn't it? And if we do that great idea for Ian right now, we'll have to deprioritize some of this work that we're doing for Dana and Trey. Is that what you want us to do? If they say yes, all right, fine. That's why they get the big bucks. But at least you'll know, which is super duper powerful. All right, so my whole point here is alignment first and then data. The alignment is so incredibly powerful because, and it's more important than data because the alternative to alignment around assumptions is not alignment around data. That's just not the way it works in business. The alternative to alignment around assumptions is misalignment around assumptions. That's what actually happens. So before you can have your data land anywhere, you better get alignment on what the assumptions are, and then you can begin massaging them. We have to stop being such snobs about data, and we have to stop being such snobs about assumptions. Then and only then can our data work when we're not in fighting mode anymore, because fighting them doesn't work. Fighting never works. Fighting causes chaos. And if you can't see assumptions, you can't change them. And again, I'm reminding you of this Aligned book, which talks about the whole alignment issue for us in our field so brilliantly with a story and everything. And this workshop that I've been working on for a gazillion years so nicely fits in with this new conversation. So I'm going to come back to the first slide, the last slide. In my opinion, seniority in UX, UXR, and product requires realizing that staying out of politics is not an option. You don't get to do that and become senior. Like it or not, that is a huge part, maybe the part of your job. In fact, I listened to Melissa Apple yesterday present on Aligned, and she said that is the job if you're senior. You have to understand that alignment is more valuable than data. You really do. And we can argue about that if you want, but I'll win. We have to accept that aligning stakeholders is actually your job. And also you need to know that you are uniquely suited to do it. Being afraid of politics when you're younger in your career is one thing. Having some miles under your belt of knowing how to deal with the fact that there are users of a system and that system isn't working for them, It's the same thing. It's just turning that talent inwards, that focused inwards and upwards to try to manage the weather so that you can launch something that people actually love to use. And that's what I've got for you. And so I want to open it up to questions or requests for clarifications or anything that you please.
Tamara, awesome.
Silence. Oh.
So awesome. Now I'm going to be a little bridge. I'm going to start you with one question from Tim Price. All great stuff. How does one get in front of executives who are untouchable to us underlings so that we can even run such exercises?
Great question. You don't. You start small. So if you start with your own little team. So when I was at Amazon, 2000 to 2002 to 2005, I was writing the big persona lifecycle book. So we tried to do personas for Amazon, right? Oh my God, did not work. Best came out of it was like a white guy in Dockers, which was hilarious at that point and probably true. But I was this data-driven persona goddess, and I couldn't do it with the world's biggest database. It just wouldn't work. But what I did do at the same time was alignment personas with the car parts team and the loose diamonds team, because of course you buy your car parts and your loose diamonds on Amazon.com. Who wouldn't? And doing those little projects, those little skunk works projects, when we launched those, they ended up sucking less than everyone expected. So if you can do with your little team something that sucks less than anyone expected, they start asking how you did that. And so do not put yourself in a situation where you are too low in the hierarchy to make it at all safe for you to do this. Try it small and know that this alignment skill is something that you need to build over your career. And the alignment workshop is something you can do within a team. I would try to get the goals signed off on by at least one level above. And the way I do that is I say, oh, great boss, grand boss, here is my lame understanding, my translation of our business goals into something that this stupid process asked for in this ridiculous Mad Libs format. Woe is me, I'm not sure I'm right. Can you please correct me? And if you do that, whoever you send it to isn't going to know the answer either, but now they blame you. And now they can ask their boss, how do we want to set this up for Tamara's team for success? Right? So in some ways, it's not being the dumbest person in the room, but it's being very careful about your communication. And we are good at that, people. We are user focused. We can read the room. And it's just really turning on that part of your brain and looking at them as users. And when I look up, I see people that are easy to manipulate. That's how I look at them. And so I'm gently manipulate them to get the clarity that I need to get from them. Other questions?
Yeah, I have a question for you, Tamara.
I recognize you, my darling.
Yeah, good to see you again. As you know, you helped create our personas, and what a challenge we've been having is when new leaders come in that weren't part of the alignment work, how do you handle that?
That is great. So the project we're talking about here was like a multi-year project that did this huge exercise creating alignment-based personas that then we attached data to that were, it's for a financial institution. I don't want to say too much about it, but it was a really fascinating project. It pulled out the difference between people who are already account holders versus people they want to go after as account holders. What you just said is exactly the point. New leaders come in and they don't want to accept the personas, which is the illustration of my point. It's the illustration that misalignment and empire building and, power plays, all of that is so powerful in organizations that it can disrupt everything. So how do you get them to, let's figure it out. Like, how do you do a workshop with them? You maybe walk them through some of the materials that we all created together. You say to them, help me understand who's missing here. Or maybe this is a great time to revamp the personas. Let's do a deep dive together on these to look at how we got to them. And you, with your genius new insights, fabulous human who is smarter than all of us, can help me understand the perspective that you're bringing in, right? But I'm more than happy to go through this with you. And if we find something, yes, we could create a new workshop for this. So again, you sort of do this thing where you're like, yeah, you know, I totally understand. But then you have these materials and you are able to show them. We have those presentations that we did that are these 2-hour intros to these things. So it's a way of sort of heating, I don't know, what is it? What is it when you stop an explosion from happening? Anyway, you're disarming the conversation by saying, yes, this is really important. And here, why don't you take these as a shortcut to the environment you're coming into and where we got to agreement before. And let me tell you how we got there, because it was really hard one. And boy, howdy, Ashley, was it ever a hard one. And sort of talking about it that way versus as like, no, sucks for you. You got to learn these.
Okay, yeah, that's helpful. Thank
Or
you.
bring me back in. That's the right way to do it. Another consulting gig.
Yeah, we'll give it a shot and let you know.
For sure. Who else has a question?
Hina has raised her hand.
Hi.
Hi, Tamara. Thank you so much. This presentation actually helped me understand where we are in our company, because I think they have already released what they call these personas, which we socialize as mindsets. So I'll just echo one of the questions that came in the chat, which was the question for me too. How do you reverse engineer from here when you already have those personas? Any advice on like going back into understanding the misalignment when the
So
personas are already there?
how do you deal with personas that are already there? First of all, let me tell you, the way I deal with that is I do them on a project level. The goals, the personas are at a project level. They are so quick, so inexpensive. The process is so relatively easy that I don't do it for the whole company almost ever. And in fact, this is a great point. The executive coming in Ashley's case is coming into a place where we did this massive transformation exercise over the course of over a year and a half. Most of the time, and they weren't just alignment personas because we brought data in to validate them. Most of the time, this isn't for that. Most of the time, this is like, what kind of work what does your company do?
It's HubSpot, so it's in CRM
HubSpot.
space.
Okay. So for HubSpot, I would do alignment personas, not for all of HubSpot, but for this specific piece of uploading contacts from your old contacts list into HubSpot. So ignore the personas you have now and try it out on a very small scale for a very specific project with very specific goals. In the case of what I just said, uploading contacts, metrics might be reduce the number of calls asking for handholding from our support staff and getting their contacts in or out of HubSpot, right? And there could be like, you know, Tamara too smart for her own good, who can't figure out how to I still use contacts on freaking Mac, and I wouldn't know how to get them into HubSpot, right? It's very, very specific on a project level.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Another question, Tamara, that I liked was this. I understand this needs to be done as a group for alignment, and that is my default. But I once was asked to do it one by one because I was working at an old bank and was told it was a big boys club where a group session would not work. Do you think it is all right to go one by one, then converge?
You mean create the personas one by one, or to do it by yourself?
One executive at a time, one
Oh,
stakeholder
no.
at a time.
No. In that case, I would start smaller and lower down in the hierarchy. But if you're dealing with old school institutions, this is there. You see a hammer, not everything is a nail. There are some cultural reasons why this won't work. I was invited to Japan to try to do this work, and we decided it wasn't a good idea because it's kind of like everybody egalitarian talking over each other on the same. It culturally didn't work for that company, right? And for that culture. Old school banks, I mean, I do it within a digital team, but again, it's not at the bank level that this works. It's at the project level. If you're trying to redesign your sign-on for mobile banking, that's where you do it. And you just ignore them. Now, in the case of this other financial institution, at one point I did a video for, I can tell you, this person, Nancy Newby, who was brand new to this financial institution. And I just went through the process of trying to create a checking account. Catastrophe. That video went viral inside the organization and opened a lot of eyeballs. But I didn't do it with or for the super senior executives. I did it because we were trying to get to some numbers related to new account holders setting up their new accounts.
Great answer. Thank you. We might have time for one more question if anyone wants to raise their hand or.
Hi, can I ask a question?
Please.
This question for Hi Tamara. My name's Shweta, and I remember you from a seminar at the University of Washington HCD program. So nice to see you here again.
Thanks.
So I had a question. So your approach speaks to alignment at a higher level, just trying to navigate through all that ambiguity within all the executives. So my question would be, what happens if you're in a project team and you've probably been brought in a bit later into the project? There's a bit of solution, there's a bit of personas, and people have come together with some ideas on maybe some requirements, things like that. So is it possible to reverse engineer this process and maybe go back to what the original problem is and maybe even pivot? I mean, have you seen that happen?
I mean, it would be nice, but I personally wouldn't try. I mean, how many battles can you can't win that battle. If the train has already left the station and that project is well on its way, what's the point of fighting? Anything that looks like a fight, don't do it. You're not going to win. That's my thing. Like, you got to be all karate with it and you got to like bend with the winds and stuff. But if you can get out ahead of it for the next one, then you're going to start having a much better experience with it. Don't fight assumptions. Find out what they are.
Okay.
Let the leadership show each other that they're not talking about the same person when they talk about user. And they're not talking about the same person when one executive says user today and then they say the word next Wednesday, they're talking about two different people too. If you can hold a mirror up and show them that they're talking past each other without getting anybody in trouble, depoliticizing, giving them a new vocabulary, creating a glossary is a super powerful thing. That will change things. It's a delicate political exercise. And by the way, embedded in this, I see always there's going to be conversations about what's the right way and wrong way to do personas. Should you use an illustration? What about stereotypes? All of that things. What I can tell you is it's not about being accurate. It's about being precise. This is something Cooper said in his 1999 book. It's problematic in terms of stereotypes. It's absolutely problematic in terms of equity, in terms of different levels of different types of abilities. But the alternative to alignment around assumptions is misalignment around the same assumptions. The alternative to alignment around assumptions is not doing it the right way. It's doing it even more wrong. And once you know what those assumptions are, then you can introduce your much better perspective, much more diverse, much less stereotypical. And by the way, you should use photos because people react to other people. They don't react to illustrations. That's
Got it. All right. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Tamara, this has been such a great presentation and discussion. Your challenge now is to choose one of the questions to be our book winner.
Oh, one of the questions to be the book winner.
One of those who submitted a question. Do you feel one was particularly insightful that you'd like us to award the book to?
Well, I think the one about the new executive coming in, I think that is really, really interesting. That how do you bring new perspectives in to existing systems? And how can you do that in a way that is respectful and yet also manages them without getting yourself in trouble?
Okay, awesome. Whoever that was, can you please email, can you message me with your email address and we'll make sure to get you a book.
So Raymond, I just want to make sure with you and Tamara, that Tim's was the first question about how do you get this in front of executives?
That's not the question.
That's not the question.
The one is when there's a new executive coming in. So whoever
Or
has,
not part. So that was Ashley.
perfect.
Oh yeah, Ashley. Yeah. Oh, good. Ashley gets a book.
And
And her
awesome. I look forward to reading it.
Okay, awesome.
Oh, and the kitty.
Which book is
Yeah.
it?
It's
What's that?
Invisible Women.
Oh, cool.
That's our book group for next month in September. Hey, Before you go, if we just want to remind you of the evaluation form, we'd love to hear your feedback. So if you can take a minute to fill that out, it helps us a ton, and we can show that to Tamara.
Oh, I have one more thing. I am trying to
please.
get off my butt, out of my brain, and create an online course about this, maybe an ebook. If you're interested in this process and you might be willing to be like a beta tester of those that go into much deeper, please let me know because I'd love to add you to that list and get your thoughts on it.
A very reasonable request. I hope someone or more in the audience can help with that. Okay, awesome. Well, thank you all for joining. Please, if you'd like to stay around for networking, you're welcome to. We'll create some breakout rooms and you can stay and chat with others who've come. Tamara, maybe you'll be in a breakout room. I don't know. But
I'm
if you'd like
happy to
be, then-
stay and talk for sure.
Okay, sounds great. So I'll let you choose one. I'm just going to create 10. Anyone who wants to, we know it's hard to know how many people will join in, but anyway, I'll create a number of breakout rooms. You'll just be assigned automatically, and Tamara, maybe you can dance through them if you want to.
Okay. Oh, Zoom. Why do you make things so hard? Okay. Yeah.
Thanks again, everyone, for joining. It's been awesome to have you. Come back again. Okay, the rooms are now open.